morning. It's Tuesday, July 26th, and I'm back on the Ukrainian situation right now, and Russia. And here's something that happened. Russia made a deal with the Ukraine to allow them to ship food, and then they proceeded to bomb Odessa, the port where all the grains are stored for shipment. And so the question in my mind, and in the minds of many others, is Russia using the Ukrainian food supply to blackmail the rest of the world into giving them what they want, giving the Russians what they want? Is that part of Putin's plan, to lie about what he's going to do and then do the reverse with respect to the food supply? Because in addition to bombing the port of Odessa to keep the grain there and stuck so that the world continues to starve, they also bombed a factory that prepared and repaired railroad cars that were used for the distribution of food. So many in the world think that Russia is trying to blackmail the rest of the world into giving him what he wants, or giving them what he wants, because he's withholding the food. And I agree with that. I believe that that's exactly what he's doing. But in this world, there are always people who think the opposite. And these people do not agree. They feel that the West is looking to hold Putin accountable for everything that goes on in the Ukraine. And they think that the West has overreached by blaming Putin for everything. They don't believe that Putin is holding food supplies hostages as part of his war strategy to end the sanctions. Putin may be a little bit over the edge, but he is a mastermind at using strategies to his benefit. And we have seen in the course of this conflict that Putin continually blames others for his actions. And Putin has come out and said that the West should lift the sanctions to enable safe passage of grain and to allow more Russian grain to reach the world markets. And we know that Putin is capable of blackmailing the world and capable of playing the heavy due to the rising grain demand and the risks of starvation. So why doesn't Putin smarten up? Why doesn't he declare a truce and say, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 days off. I'll stop my actions for 3 or 4 days and you can ship the grain if you relieve me of some of these sanctions. But that would show weakness. That would show weakness. That would show that he's in trouble. He's not about to do that. So he's going to do it the hard way, by destroying the food supply to the rest of the world, because he believes that he can control it. And what's going to happen when it comes to the tipping point, where everybody has gotten fed up with him, where everybody can no longer deal with his lying and his denying of food to many nations that are on the verge of starvation. Those nations ought to be rallying with the West against food. Those nations ought to put the squeeze on Russia in whatever way, shape they can. And we should have other nations beyond the EU and beyond NATO pressuring Putin to give up the ghost and let everybody get their food. It would be very nice if we could talk to China to help us out in this ordeal. That would be a wonderful thing if we could convince the Chinese premier, to step to the plate and talk to Putin. Tell him they're not going to get anything from China either if they don't stop starving the rest of the world. And we know the UN is helpless because Russia has veto power. And so if they try to put forth some resolution to help the rest of the world, Russia would veto it. But I am wondering if there can't be some way to create a silent movement to allow nations to somehow or other counter the effects of this move by Russia to starve the world. And then we have some who claim that this attack on Putin is something that's being used to isolate Putin and Russia, because they believe that every time something like this happens, that's what they want. That's what the rest of the world wants. So there are some people in the world that are defending Putin's actions because they believe that Russia is in the right. And I don't know how people can come to that conclusion when this special military operation was meant to keep NATO from his doorstep. Was he afraid that NATO would show the Russian people what democracy looks like? That the rest of the world is able to defend themselves against Russia? What is he going through his mind? So as I said, there are many that are saying that this motive of blaming Russia for the food shortages is nothing more than a black mark against Putin and not to be believed. So with the world on the edge of starvation and Putin causing a large majority of the problem, I find it unconscionable that there are many who are out there speaking on his behalf. Are there so many people that are against the civilizations in the West that they could come out and agree with Putin on his actions, on his attempts to take over a country, and his attempts to starve the world? This is a sorry place we're in, and it's a sorry situation for all of the starving people. And so I leave you to think about that. Think about the fact that a maniacal dictator has people who are willing to stand up and say that he may be in the right. So that's it for this morning. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.